All right, the House Economic Development and Small Business Committee will come to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Hoskins.
Here.
Representatives Grant.
Here.
Whitsett. Neely.
Here.
Liberati.
Here.
Kofia.
Here.
Farhat.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Tisdale.
Here.
Van Workum.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
St. Germain.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 members present and a quorum.
All right. Should be a fun-filled day here in committee. All right, first up, we're going to have House Bill 5096 from Representative Grant. She will be joined by Josh Hunt and Stacy Bowerman from MEDC.
All right, I will get started while they are working on the PowerPoint. Good morning. Thank you to the chair and committee members for considering this important legislation before you today. House Bill 5096, that is the legislation before you, updates laws surrounding Renaissance zones to be more flexible so that local governments are able to better utilize these zones in support of communities and able to make them more competitive. These tools will help many of our communities who need it the most. Renaissance zones are designations that can drive development and investment in places and projects as the basis for growth, making these communities that we call home more appealing for investment and developers while also providing stability to those communities and developers. It recognizes that small and medium-sized businesses or developments are just as significant as large-scale ones. Renaissance zones are a way of meeting that need while meeting the need for these projects while also ensuring that our communities are financially whole. In May of this year, Governor Whitmer formed a bicameral work group to focus on economic development. And as a result of the work in that group, this bill, as well as others, came about. MEDC is here to discuss more of the basics on Renaissance zones and what this legislation intends to do. And so with that, I will turn it over to Josh Hunt.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you to everybody, Mr. Chair, and other representatives for the opportunity to discuss this important legislation here today and to continue to move Michigan forward and strengthen our state as a place to live, work, play, and stay. As a representative mentioned, we're here today to talk about an overview of what Renaissance zones are, what they have done in the past, and where we're looking going forward with this legislation to continue to move the economy forward. Renaissance zones were created in 1996, and they offer reduced taxes for a specific period of time that encourages companies to invest in an area, create jobs, and raise local property value while lessening the burden on local communities. The original intent was to encourage job creation, retention, and investment in communities across the state. It has been nearly 30 years since these Renaissance zones were first created, and a lot has changed over that period of time, as you all know, in terms of business, technology, construction, community needs, development, and the local government's ability to provide for those needs. Today's legislation reflects the need for flexibility because of those changes and lessons learned over many years. Renaissance zones under this legislation will continue to keep municipalities in the driver's seat, as any zone designation will require local approval. Renaissance zones overall provide temporary relief for the following taxes within a Renaissance zone: state and local real and personal property tax, local income tax, and a Michigan personal income tax if there's a resident within that zone. Companies do continue to pay other taxes as a part of that Renaissance zone, including all federal taxes, any local bond obligations, school sinking fund payments, special assessments, and the Michigan sales and use tax all continue to be paid under that Renaissance zone. The state reimburses local schools, if necessary, to continue to ensure that schools within the school district where a Renaissance zone is located continue to get their total per pupil funding based on the formula from the school aid fund. So the schools continue to be made whole. Tax benefits under the Renaissance zone are phased out in 25% increments over the final 4 years of the Renaissance zone designation. Under the current legislation that was established in 1996 and then has been amended over the years, there are 6 different types of zones with specific criteria assigned to each, which limits their use and application as times change and the need for businesses and our people across the state and our communities continue to evolve. As you can see here, the different types of zones, there are 38 total zones that are remaining. 60 Renaissance zones have been approved over the period of time with these zones in place. I would also add, notably, and one of the changes reflected in this legislation is that only Michigan Strategic Fund designated Renaissance zones allow for a payment in lieu of taxes in which communities can receive a payment negotiated with the company for lost revenue that comes to ensure essential services and other community needs are met by the state, which met by the Renaissance zone, which brings us to one of the reasons that we see the need to modify this legislation and amend the Renaissance Zone Act. The key to successful economic development is to ensure that we have flexibility, and that's what House Bill 5096 delivers. Much like the Brownfield legislation has been modified to be more flexible to meet the needs of our present day, this case, we also need to see this for changes in our Renaissance zones as well, to allow them to be used in a more flexible way to meet the project needs and the people of our state at this time. House Bill 5096 consolidates the Renaissance zone classification into simpler, more flexible terms so that we can support projects today and into the future. We are not requesting the creation of any new Renaissance zones or getting rid of any. It is merely giving them a stronger base so that they can be more widely used for developments across the state to meet the needs of our growing economy. Consolidation of these Renaissance zones also provides communities more say in a given project by allowing a payment in lieu of taxes in all cases, which right now is only allowed under the MSF designated zone. In doing so, we will get closer to our goal of ensuring the future of a community is based on a vision of its local residents, local businesses, and those who have for the long term called that place home. These payments in lieu of taxes also give local governments more predictability in accounting and budgeting when they make their budgets for the long term, and they provide a sense of certainty for the development and the businesses themselves that are locating here. Over the next few slides, I'll highlight a few examples of Renaissance zones that have been over the years and how they have worked in various communities across the state. The first one I'll highlight is Dow Chemical and Dow Silicones Corporation. In 2022, Dow received a 15-year MSF-designated Renaissance zone to modernize some of their facilities at the Dow Michigan Operations Industrial Park. This upgraded and extended the life of these manufacturing facilities. They are modernizing the research and development capabilities in the state and are making manufacturing more sustainable here in Michigan. Dow agreed to an annual payment in lieu of taxes for existing properties within the proposed zone, and overall, this project is expected to result in $150 million of investment by Dow and the retention of 800 jobs in Midland. Another example is Spartan, Michigan and Proliant Dairy, Michigan, for an investment located in St. John's in Clinton County. This was a construction of a new 142-acre dairy processing facility, and in 2018 was approved for a 15-year Michigan Strategic Agricultural Processing Renaissance Zone. This project was expected to create 300 jobs, and as of 2021, has already created 286 of those jobs. And they've invested more than $453 million of the $510 million that is overall anticipated for this project. In 2020, Michigan ranked 6th in total milk production across the country, and this project was critical to ensure the roughly 900 dairy farm families could stay afloat in the state and in this economy. It's estimated that Michigan's dairy industry contributes $15.7 billion to the state's economy each year through those family farms across the state. The last one that I'd like to highlight is Michigan Central in Detroit. This was once a symbol of decay and the old Michigan, and is now equally a symbol of resurgence, revitalization, and reinvention of our state and our economy. In 2019, a 30-year Michigan Strategic Fund designated Renaissance Zone was provided with the goal of attracting tech companies from startups to global corporations to the city of Detroit. To date, Michigan Central has become a hub for collaboration and innovation just as it was intended. Critical tenants and partners including Google, Ford, a wireless solutions company, Electron, and New Lab, which provides infrastructure for tech entrepreneurs and through startup and growth stages, all highlight the success of the Michigan Central redevelopment. In June of 2022, Michigan Central announced a new $500,000 fund to help uplift the neighborhood businesses and residents for more education, training, and entrepreneurial acumen for those neighborhood residents. So these three highlight three examples of the many Renaissance zones that have been successful and examples of the type of work that we can do together as a part of this legislation to continue to provide the flexibility that's needed to continue to grow the economy. Thank you again, Mr. Chair, for the time, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you both so much for your testimony. With that, I will open it up to the committee for questions. Oh, all right. Well, thank you both so much for your testimony. For the members, we will probably be bringing this back up next week for a vote.
Thank you.
All right. I just have one card to read in for this. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill is Adam Carlson from Michigan Health and Hospital Association. I also have a letter here from the Detroit Medical Center also in support of the bill. All right. For the next order of business, we are going to be taking up House Bills 5099, 5100, 5101, and 5012. These together are the Research and Development Tax Credit. I will say that this, along with the Renaissance Zones, are tools that I know many in the business community have been asking for, something that certainly Mr. Hunt kind of mentioned in his presentation, but certainly I've heard over the last few months something that will make Michigan more competitive. I am grateful for the bill sponsors for bringing this up, as well as the many stakeholders who've had input on this. I will say that we are still taking in input and making changes. So we are hoping to have any of those suggestions potentially put into amendments or a sub soon. But I just want to say, as we go forward through this process, your input is invaluable to us as we are trying to get this to a good place. So with that being said, I'm going to call the we have limited space at the table there, so I'm going to be calling the sponsors up one at a time. They have some guests with them. I'm going to ask the committee members to hold their questions. We're going to have the sponsors speak, and then we're going to have a couple of organizations come and testify as well. And after that, I'll bring the sponsors back up, and you can ask them questions, as well as any of the groups who also will testify. So with that, we are going to start with Representative Martis. He is going to be coming and testifying with Tyler Ross Meisler. All right. Tyler Ross Meisler, the Executive Director of the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the committee members, folks in the gallery, and Tyler for being with us this morning. There have been so many conversations this legislative term as to what economic development should look like in the state of Michigan. These conversations were sparked by this once-in-a-generation opportunity that we find ourselves in after the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic brought international supply chains to a screeching halt across the world, driving up inflation and forcing folks to recognize that we must reinvest here in America and here in the state of Michigan. The federal government, to prevent catastrophe in our country's economy, dispersed a greater amount of federal funds to the states across our country since anything seen since the Great Society. The consensus that we must bring some supply chains home, combined with the understanding that once these federal funds have been spent, we have to decide what is worth investing in, are the two pillars that underpin the future of economic development here in the state of Michigan. A central part of this vision for our state must be a research and development tax credit. 37 states already have this credit on the books. The closest state geographically to Michigan that does not have an R&D tax credit is West Virginia. The rest of our regional and even national partners across our country already have this on the books. This puts us at a large disadvantage when companies decide where to invest both nationally and regionally. While we consistently rank as a good state to do business in, something that everybody here should be proud of, countless companies and organizations list the lack of an R&D tax credit as the largest deficiency in our economic vision as a state. While economic development can often be complex, and I defer to many of the experts here in this room, the R&D tax credit is relatively simple, and it is the opportunity for a large bipartisan win for our state. We've had a number of folks on both sides of the aisle, including Greg Van Werkum and others, who have been leaders in getting an R&D tax credit done, and we're that much closer. This is a credit for businesses who conduct their research and development here in the state of Michigan. This can be cutting-edge advancements in technology, life-saving medicine, the future of the automotive industry, and will touch nearly every sector of our economy. The credit would be structured in a way that both large and small businesses would benefit, and there are extra incentives for collaboration with some of our top-tier universities in our state. All of this not only makes it more likely that inventions and advancements will benefit the lives of people across the globe, but it will happen here in Michigan, which will create good-paying jobs for our friends and neighbors and communities all across our state. The R&D tax credit will spur creativity and innovation here in Michigan. The benefits to our economy will be substantial, but even more important is the chance for life-saving medicines and new forms of technology to happen because of this legislation, because of this action of us here in Lansing. We understand that we need to bring supply chains home, and that happens with an R&D tax credit. We know that as federal funds dry up, we have to prioritize programs that work, and R&D's track record is unimpeachable. I am asking all of you not just to invest in another tax credit, but to invest in our state's future. This is an opportunity to legislate in this moment, but with our sights set on Michigan's future. With that, I'd like to turn over the microphone to a good friend of mine, the Executive Director of the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance, Tyler Ross Meisler.
Thank you, Rhett. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the members of the committee. My name is Tyler Ross Meisler. It's a difficult name. And I'm the Executive Director of the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance. But I'm here representing not only the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance today, but also my colleagues with the Economic Development Leaders for Michigan. EDLM's 12-member organizations lead Michigan's resurgence in many ways. Most notably, we facilitate the creation of high-paying jobs through business retention, expansion, and attraction, and facilitate the efforts and accelerate entrepreneurship and innovation in our state. Our members have a deep understanding of economic growth strategies from many years of work here in Michigan and around the country. And I'm thankful that you're taking the time today to hear from some perspectives from one of the state's economic developers. And we share your goals in seeing Michigan's economy grow and for more prosperity for Michigan residents. We're encouraged by the efforts to make Michigan a more attractive place to start, expand, and relocate a business, and we applaud the efforts to restore the research and development tax credit. These efforts acknowledge the reality that our competitor states already know, which is these credits encourage investment, innovation, and lead to the growth of good-paying jobs. My colleagues and I have had the chance to review the bills and have a few simple recommendations, 5 of them. Number 1, a broad-based R&D tax credit should be directly tied to the federal tax credit to simplify the qualification process. If a company is qualified for the federal tax credit, then they would automatically qualify for the state here. This is similar to the work you've done with the Working Families Tax Credit passed earlier this year. Further, it would be flexible and broad. This would ensure a wide array of industries would remain flexible when federal definitions change. And it would eliminate some confusion because no company would be confused over what's eligible or not eligible in Michigan. Second, an R&D tax credit should be tied to state tax returns and monitored by the Department of Treasury and not run like a grant program. Third, establish a clear requirement that the credited activities happen within Michigan. 4, expand the definition of research universities to include all state universities. And 5, increase the dollar amount to provide for program to support a robust ecosystem of research and development here in Michigan. I wanted to tell you a little story maybe on how it actually works here. When a large corporation, maybe from Europe or California, is looking to locate in the East Coast or in the Midwest, like Michigan, they put together a sanitized description of their project. It's not going to have their company name, but it might have a little bit about the industry, the type of work that they're looking to do, the dollars of investment, and the jobs they're going to create. And then they submit this RFP to many states. And it's our chance to respond to that RFP. And if we have the ability to check that, yes, our state has an R&D tax credit, we automatically get to compete. If we have to check no, we get eliminated. And it's ridiculous that we're getting eliminated today because Michigan has a heritage of innovation. We have more engineers per capita than any other state, and we have the best universities in the world. And I think it's irrelevant to say that one university is better than the other this week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say which one. We invent the future here in Michigan, and then we build it. And Flint is a story of that too. We took 4 wheels and an engine and put the world on wheels, and we can do it again. And I think it's time that we stop allowing other states to take this mantle from us, and we put this tool to work here and make it easy to use. So with that, thank you for your consideration and your time today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both so much for your testimony. All right, next we are going to have Representative Hood. She will be joined by Mr. Chad Bassett and Dr. Anthony Chang from BAMP Health.
Thank you, Chair Hoskins. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here today with you to talk about my bill, 5099, which establishes an R&D tax credit for Michigan. Happy to join Rep. Martis after his enthusiastic pitch for reinvesting in R&D in Michigan, and really thrilled to have with me today a couple of shining examples of individuals who are helping to really reinvigorate research and development in the state and advance a company out of Grand Rapids. Thrilled to have BAMP here today. As Rep. Martis mentioned, Michigan is only one of 10 states without an R&D tax credit and the only state in the Midwest that doesn't have one, which is sort of shocking given our long history of innovation here in the state. Our businesses step up despite this, spending $20 billion in R&D, that spend ranking top 5 in the nation. Michigan ranks 6th in the nation for patent awards, building on a strong legacy of entrepreneurship and innovation. We have 4,500 commercial and industrial designers, the most in the nation. We also have the highest concentration of these workers, 4 times higher than the national average here in Michigan. We are the 4th highest business R&D spending to GDP ratio in the country in 2018, and the ratio twice that of the nation in subsequent years. An R&D tax credit will continue to grow our industrial base and lead a generation of technology through research and development. And it's critical to continuing to build a concentration of high-tech engineering, design, and biomedical talent in the state, among other industries. Grand Rapids, like many other cities across the state, is known for being a hub of innovation and for having public and private investments that work together to advance new technologies. I mentioned Banff is here with Dr. Chang, who is the CEO and founder, and Mr. Bassett, who is serving as the COO of Banff. And I'll let them tell you more about what they're doing and how that really exemplifies Grand Rapids' history of innovation and its contributions to the economy in West Michigan. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the credit itself. Businesses that qualify the credit must be engaged in activities as defined by the federal R&D tax credit definition to develop or improve products, processes, software, formulas, techniques, or inventions. Additional consideration will be given to companies that enter into cooperative research and development agreements with Michigan universities, and our colleague will talk about that in a few moments. Businesses also must demonstrate that the R&D is associated with new investment and that it would create or retain well-paying jobs. This is a passion point for me. We know that families need to be, well into the upper 5 figures in order to be sustainable in Michigan. And so we need to make sure that we are providing jobs that, start at $80,000 and move into the 6-figure category. And it's through R&D that we're able to attract those jobs and then subsequently that talent and retain it here in Michigan. And the Michigan Strategic Fund will set the maximum refund that will be claimed. So with that, I won't take up any more time from the stars of the show. I introduce you to Dr. Chang.
Good morning, Chair Hoskins and the committee. It's my great pleasure to represent Banff over here to share our passion about and support to this bill. I'm Anthony Chen, Banff and CEO and founder of Banff Health. Banff Health is a technology company in Grand Rapids focused on developing life-saving technology, allowed us to catch the cancer, Alzheimer's, PTSD, CTE, those kind of devastating diseases way earlier than what we can do right now. And also the technology allowing us to bring the cancer patients and the stage cancer patients with no current method to treat back to complete remission. And this is not just our vision. This is happening in Grand Rapids every single day. We start practice this kind of medicine and dedicate every day to bring this kind of technology to every single patient who need it. As you can see, in order to achieve this kind of goal, we have to do a lot innovation and research. And this research is not only in clinical trial in scientific field, we also need to reinvent the whole infrastructures about how to deliver this kind of technology to every single patient who need it, meaning the infrastructure, meaning the operations. And innovation takes time and it fails. So, how to create the environment allowed us to fail faster allows us to fail more efficient, allows us to fail safer. This is critical for a company like us to survive. However, this kind of innovation is going to create a brand new industry, start boost the strong economy for Michigan and recruit more talent to Michigan and to make us way stronger community. And that's why we're strongly support this kind of bill, because this offer us a great opportunity, allowing us to fail more efficiently, allowed us doing innovation more efficiently, allowed us to save life more efficiently. And that's why we're here today. So I want to, besides the business point, I want to literally to focus on the life-saving part. This is why we're doing it. I mean, right now, a lot of the things we're doing takes the clinical trials, and we do it longitudinally. We have to apply clinical trials, allowed us to do this kind of new technology to the patient, and then once we get approved, we need to find the money, allowing us to conduct these kind of clinical trials. It is really, really efficient. So we are not trying to skip these kind of steps, because safety is the most important things. We want to have a solid science, solid data to support this new invention. However, we think we can make the whole operation and the system way more efficient by using these type of bill and protocols, allowing us to do those kind of things. We can save unnecessary time wasting on waiting, and allow us to get the answer faster and apply to the patient way faster. Every single day we save, that we're gonna save way more life, and that's why we're doing what we're doing over here. So I appreciate this opportunity allowed us to testify over here, but there's a way bigger things on us. We all know on this kind of bill, we all know it's not money make things happen. It's not a company make things happen. It's people make things happen. So how are we going to, in 21st century, how are we going to attract global talent to Michigan and build a stage to allow them to shine, allow them to leverage their talent and a skill set to build an even stronger economy, and also better technology to benefit our society and humanity? That's a very, very important thing. So for this kind of point of view, I'll pass to our CEO, Mr. Bassett, to talk more about this.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I just want to make two brief additional points. One, like Dr. Chang said, around talent, and one around partnerships. We're really excited about two aspects of the bill that address that. I just recently finished serving on the governor's Growing Michigan Together work group for jobs, talent, and people. One of the number one ways to attract talent is to invest in new companies. This bill is a phenomenal tool to allow new companies to come to Michigan and to take advantage of that R&D tax credit. Number two, partnerships. We are located in Michigan State University's Innovation Park in Grand Rapids. So we greatly appreciate the opportunity that this bill puts forth for additional opportunity to incentivize partnerships with universities across the state. We think that'll be another tool to not only spur innovation, but to spur additional development for universities like Michigan State to create more innovation parks to partner with businesses. So those are the two aspects I wanted to briefly mention. Thank you for the opportunity today.
All right, thank you all so much for your testimony this morning. All right, next we are going to move to Representative Rogers. Representative Rogers has two people with her as well, but they are with us virtually. Stephen Rapindalo, President and CEO of Michigan Bioscience Industry Association, and Anna Langerveld, President and CEO of Gene Makers. Representative Rogers, if you would please.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Chair Hoskins and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss all of these bills today, but I will touch on especially my bill, House Bill 5101, to provide a refundable tax credit on qualifying research and development investments by small businesses who are on the cutting edge of technology and product development. I'm really thrilled to be with my colleagues, Representatives Hood, Martis, and Peary, in this important economic development package. And as one of the chairs of the Legislative Biosciences Caucuses, I am proud to speak on these bills. My bill specifically will ensure that research and development expenses by businesses with fewer than 250 employees are included in this vital tool to make Michigan-based businesses competitive with the 36 other states that already support this work via tax credits. It also gives additional incentives to grow our businesses from small to medium and medium to large. While we can all name the largest corporations involved in the research and development space, we too often forget about the smaller organizations in our own communities doing this work, employing our community members in high-wage jobs, and supporting many of our local economies. Many of our small businesses are highly engaged in this vital work and create transformational technology and life-saving innovative products. In my own community of Kalamazoo, we have several small businesses engaging in research and development activities for over 100 years. You see, Kalamazoo is home to many entrepreneurs, among them some pretty famous life science folks like Dr. W.E. Upjohn and Dr. Homer Stryker. Dr. Stryker was the only orthopedic surgeon in the region in the 1930s, and he got his start at Ascension Borges Hospital. Two of his best-known innovations were the turning frame and a cutting saw that cuts casts. During World War II, his turning bed frame was highly sought out by the U.S. Army and saved lives. He started out with just himself and a few other scientists and healthcare providers, and now Stryker is a world-renowned international multi-billion-dollar company. Because of Stryker's innovation and incubation, we have another small company in Kalamazoo called CD2X. They have developed a thermal scalpel that uses heat to seal blood vessels as they are being cut. These precise dissections during surgery have the potential to have better surgical outcomes by minimizing blood loss. I mentioned the two, Stryker, which came out of one man's imagination and grew to a global company, and then the smaller medical device company also creating amazing life-saving products. Often these companies just need a little bit of an additional investment to grow from small to medium and help them go from good to great. While these smaller businesses are not always making headlines, they are making a difference in our communities and have a significant impact on our economy. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, nationwide in 2019, small businesses with between 10 and 499 employees invested $70 billion in research and development and employed 500,000 individuals. These proposed R&D tax credits in Michigan are necessary to keep our state competitive nationally and internationally. Small businesses conducting innovative research need long-term stability for planning multi-year projects. And often in the R&D space, there's just as many failures as there are successes, which is why this specific sector needs additional investment. These bills provide additional tools in Michigan's economic development toolbox to both retain and grow our small businesses and attract new ones to our state. Also, as was mentioned by Chair Hoskins, with me testifying today are Dr. Stephen Rapundolo, President and CEO of MichBio, as well as one of my very own shining stars from Kalamazoo, the CEO of Gene Markers, Dr. Anna Langerveld.
All right, Dr. Rapundolo. Dr. Rapundolo, if you're there.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Sure I can. Go for it.
Thank you so much for offering me the opportunity to speak, especially virtually. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. Yes, so I'm Stephen Rapundolo, President and CEO of MichBio, the Michigan Biosciences Industry Association. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this package of bills. We've been a strong advocate for establishing such an incentive. It's been our top priority over the last dozen years, ever since its demise back in 2011, which quite frankly, I think was a huge blow to our statewide bio industry and reduced our competitiveness relative to other bioscience hubs nationally. As was already mentioned, there's only about a dozen states that do not have the credit. And in fact, while other regions with bioscience clusters have instituted or even upgraded their incentives to ensure that the research and development continues to thrive, Michigan has sort of sat there without that benefit. And I think, as it's already been articulated very well by folks from Banff Health, The fact is that the bio industry, probably more so than many others, is deeply, deeply rooted in R&D, and it starts back from our basic research at our research institutions through the early stage companies, and then, of course, all the way through to our large companies. And so those, of course, are scattered all over the state. We have some major hubs in the lower half of the state, but you'd be surprised what is up in Traverse City and even in the UP. But they're all underscored by the fact that they're rooted in R&D. And the fact is that this credit is really a win-win, right? The incentive for the company is, do your research here, bring your investments, your R&D investments here, take your risks here, and you'll get a credit against your future income. For the state, the state gets the benefit of all those investment dollars that are infused into the economy. It gets the income and property and sales taxes by the companies and their employees. And the fact is that, I think it's important to point out that the R&D tax credits are earned by companies only after they've made an investment, after they've spent funds in Michigan. So with that as a backdrop, I'd just like to say that obviously we're in support of the intent behind these bills. I would, like the speaker from the Clinton Economic Development, throw out a few other things for your consideration. First of all, the funding pool, what has been identified is obviously very significant and impressive. I perhaps would throw a little caution to the wind insofar as regarding long-term sustainability. I think there needs to be, if the credit's to be instituted, it needs to be fiscally predictable, and there needs to be program consistency over a number of years. The companies want to be sure that there's something that they can rely on. And so a number of states have set sunset provisions or something, but I think this has to be articulated in the bills that, the program would be in place for, we would suggest, at least 5 years or more. I think there's still some work to be done with regards to eligibility criteria, who actually is eligible and who's not. That, I think, speaks to really what kind of economic development tool this incentive is intended to be. And I think, as was noted previously, flexibility is important. And I think that aspect should be fleshed out a little better. I've raised this issue in the past when the bills like this have been raised, and I applaud very much Representative Rogers for following through with HB 5101, and that being that small companies historically have been kind of cut out of the conversation. And, this bill obviously guarantees that that they would get a piece of the funding pool. And I think really this is where, if you look at past reports and data, clearly shows that the R&D tax credits utilized by small companies have really been the areas that have had the greatest ROI for states in terms of economic impact and job growth. I would also add that, I also applaud the fact that 5102 has been proposed. I think that's, as Banff Health folks have said, it's partnerships with our research universities is imperative, and there should be, an added incentive in place to encourage that. Certainly our three major research universities have huge research enterprises, but amongst them, they also have major drug discovery enterprises and so forth that are natural relationships for small and large companies to leverage. Additionally, I would think about having some credit carryover. A number of states permit this, as well as, and more importantly, refundability of credits. Many of these early stage companies that we have in Michigan do not have products on the market. They have no profits. And I think a refundable component would be a valuable incentive for them to and enable them to promote their commercialization and further product development. And then also, I think has been noted, qualified expenses. I think one of the things that would strengthen this and has been done in a few other states relates to expenses related to patent filings, regulatory filings, things like that. And as well as businesses can be more than just C Corps. You know, a lot really revolves around kind of the minutia and the details about who can and who can't you know, take advantage of this credit to its maximum. And then lastly, I would just say that similar to the speaker from Flint, I think aligning with the federal you know, tax credits, making it simple as possible to utilize. In surprisingly many states, that's not the case. But making it simple, tying it, making it part of the state tax return is really critical. And if we are to allow a certain qualified expenses above and beyond the federal, what's allowed federally, then that should be defined in the language. And one other note that I would add, and this comes from having interfaced with those that are in the space to assist companies with R&D tax credit applications, is that many times state rules or lack thereof conflict with federal IRS guidelines and practices. And so I think, I guess what I would say is that look forward to having further discussions and bringing some of those type of stakeholders into the discussion to ensure that whatever the final product is, it's going to be one that's going to be appealing, it's going to be easy to use, and maximize the ROI for everybody's benefit. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you. And next we have Dr. Langerveld, if you are on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to turn on my video. Sorry about that. I'll just go ahead without video if that's okay.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the committee this morning on behalf of small business. Like I've been introduced, my name is Anna Langerveld, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company in Kalamazoo called Gene Markers. The company was founded in 2008 and currently has 30 employees. We're a genomics testing laboratory that provides genetic testing to patients and providers in the healthcare system. We offer testing that helps optimize medication management using DNA-based methodologies. We currently have 30 employees. At the height of our growth during the COVID pandemic, we were at a little over 50. And we offered throughout the COVID pandemic, we ran over a couple of 100,000 tests over the few years, and supported testing to skilled nursing facilities, universities, local hospitals, and really believe that we made a significant impact in keeping our local community safe. This morning, I'm going to talk about two areas in which this tax credit can help companies like mine, small businesses that are on the track to grow from small to mid-sized businesses. And, echoing some of the things that people have said earlier during this committee meeting, two areas that would directly impact small businesses like mine would be being able to reinvest funds back into our own company's research and development to help develop new testing, new new type for my company, new testing services and new like innovative technologies that can help bring things to market. One of the things that we're currently working on is a new test or an innovative genetic test that will help manage or reduce opioid addiction. Another area another impact that the funding or a research tax credit would help with is job growth. As I mentioned, Gene Markers currently employs about 30 people. And one of the things that's very challenging for a small life science company here in Michigan is acquiring highly skilled talent. And others before me have mentioned that these jobs are often high paying, over, 80 to, 100,000 is, kind of like the baseline job kind of salary base. One of the things that impacts small businesses like mine is the ability to compete with larger businesses. So, our funds are limited, and we need to have salaries and benefit packages that are competitive with our larger neighbors. So any funding that can be put back into company to help, increase the salary base for acquiring and developing new positions would be extremely helpful. I think those were my primary points that I wanted to touch on this morning, and appreciate the opportunity to offer my opinion here in this tax credit bill.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Lingerfeld, and thank you, Representative Rogers. Next, we're going to be calling up Representative Puri.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to testify. Thank you all, the members of the committee, for doing some work on this topic and in this space. I'm batting cleanup on the legislator side, so hopefully it's not too redundant from previous speakers. But I am also very well in the camp that Michigan needs to be doing all we can to spur innovation, productivity, and economic growth. And I think it's really important that we're intentional if we want to be serious about competing for the future and the economy of the future. That work starts now. Many of you know I'm worked in the automotive industry before coming to Lansing, and so I've seen firsthand the importance of this topic of economic development, of research and development, and it being a tool for our state to compete. And so preparing for the future we want requires a very holistic approach. There is no one policy or initiative itself that's going to lead to end up being the overall solution itself. But I think that this is an important tool in Michigan's toolbox. And so as our state continues to invest in people and families with policies focused on better education, access to childcare, and affordable housing, we need to also be supporting innovation, small business, and entrepreneurs. Excuse me. More than 30 states around the country do have an R&D tax credit, and we just hope that we can put Michigan on that list in order to compete, especially with our peer states. My bill, House Bill 5102, would allow the state to grant R&D additional tax credits for projects that collaborate with a research university. This will promote greater collaboration between industry and universities, and in turn leading to R&D-based employment opportunities for students and graduates. At a time of rapidly increasing demand for engineering, design, and development talent, Michigan has a strong position as a state with a robust talent pipeline with strong support for talent attraction and retention. And so, I'm as I mentioned, I'm well aware that this wouldn't solve everything, but R&D would be another important tool that allows us to attract new industry and business in this state. As we've seen, especially within the automotive industry, this shift and this evolution that's happening, I think that there is sometimes some complacency that exists in thinking that Michigan will be the forefront of this industry because we always have been. And unfortunately, industry doesn't work like that. We are under attack by neighboring states, neighboring countries, and countries all over the world for that industry. And so it's important that we understand what we have and we put the work in as a state to ensuring that we are leading the way in that innovation that will happen in the future, and that is happening right now. I envision a Michigan in which we are doing whatever we can to retain our legacy businesses, the businesses that have become synonymous with the state of Michigan, but we're also doing whatever we can to attract new companies, both big and small. And so as we look to the industry of tomorrow, whether it be automotive or any other industry, we want to be creating an ecosystem where Michigan is attracting that next billion-dollar unicorn, that we can say that company came here or started here and grew up here. And that's the Michigan that I think we all want. Putting an R&D tax credit in place works hand in hand with our efforts as a state has made to showcase that we are a national leader for business growth and attracting employees from all over the world. Retaining and growing R&D investments in Michigan assures that the talent stays here in Michigan. The presence of R&D focused businesses can help stimulate the growth of an innovation ecosystem, attracting new startups and entrepreneurs to the area, which is becoming increasingly more important for economic development. The benefits are clear. An R&D tax credit would help boost Michigan's economy by creating jobs and keeping our state competitive. R&D tax credits can be a strategic tool for Michigan to drive economic growth, foster innovation, create jobs, and enhance our long-term competitiveness and resilience. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. All right, we have two more people who wish to testify. Also, I see I have questions from committee members as well. So next I'm going to bring up Jeff Stoutenberg from Dow Chemical. I think I was told you wanted 5 minutes, so if you could keep it to 5 minutes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I only have 30 slides to go through, so I think
that's it.
That joke kills it out, by the way. So I'm glad you guys gave me the pity laugh. I just want to, before I jump into this, I just want to say thanks to the MEDC team. I was pleasantly surprised to see our Renaissance Zone project highlighted in their presentation. I specifically want to thank Stacy Bowerman. Stacy worked on that project for probably more than 5 years, more years than she wanted to count, and we encountered a number of challenges on our side during that project, and I never got to publicly thank you for your work. So that project would not have gotten over the finish line without Stacy's work, so we appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, many of you know Dow was founded in Midland, Michigan more than 125 years ago. We're very proud to operate in more than 30 countries today. But we're even more proud that we continue to call Michigan home every day. And Representative Rogers, in talking about Stryker's background, if you just replace the name Stryker with Herbert Henry Dow, that is the story of Dow. Midland is home to our global corporate headquarters. It's also home to what we call Core R&D. It's our global R&D headquarters. And Core R&D is exactly what it sounds like. It's the most basic foundational research that fuels our innovation engine as a company. And when I say basic, I don't mean simple. I just mean the very first step in developing new products and materials. Collectively across the region, in the Great Lakes Bay region, we employ thousands of people across manufacturing, corporate services, and obviously in R&D. I can't give this stat because I can't verify it. I know at one time it was true. At one point, Midland was home to, or was one of the most densely populated per capita locations for PhDs. It's what fuels our local economy. And these bills, beyond what everybody else has said this morning, it's about job creation, it's about job retention, it's also about communities, right? And building communities that can sustain themselves. Very simply put, Mr. Chairman, we are the best in the world at what we do. And we're very proud to say that we do it here in Michigan. Everything you've heard today, this is our story as Dow, but I think, as the speaker from Flint said, this is really the Michigan story, right? We invent the future here and we make it. And it's something that makes Michigan, I think, unique in the world. Just as one proof point, for those of you who have been to Midland, the R&D happening in our facilities in Midland literally does not happen anywhere else in the world. So if you've been on a tour or you've seen our facilities, you've probably heard us refer to some of the lab equipment as having serial number 1, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's equipment and lab machinery that was built by Dow and our partners to do research on essentially lines of chemistry that we created over the decades. It's a unique to the world function and capability that's housed right here. And I won't go into all of the areas. I'll just simply say the innovation coming out of our labs touches every single part of the economy. And I think others have touched on all those different areas. But probably everything you use or everything you do during the day involves some material that was either comes from or improved by products from the chemistry sector. At the end of the day, it's about doing more from a product perspective, doing more or doing better while using less. And that's really the power of R&D for us. And we know what everybody else here already knows, that an R&D credit is one of the most important tools, I think, to retain and to incrementally grow R&D spend in the state, and that comes with all the associated benefits. But in order to be effective, that credit has to be simple, and it has to provide certainty for businesses. Otherwise, we will not use it at a large scale. And I don't have anything unique to say in this regard that hasn't already been said, but we believe that the way to get the credit right is to get the structural elements of the credit right. And it's a lot of the things that you've already heard here this morning. I think the first piece that's important for us is that the credit is administered through the Department of Treasury in a way that is administratively simple and efficient. We share the view that a credit should have broad eligibility that mirrors the federal credit for simplicity purposes. Just as some of our small business colleagues shared a moment ago, we believe that the credit should be refundable. And I think in past instances, refundability has been a concern because of budget impacts, this unpredictable budget impact scenario. But that issue doesn't exist in a world where the program is capped. So we believe that credits should be refundable. And I think the most important piece for us, and I'll end the feedback here, we believe that the credit should consider not just growth or new spend, that it should consider and incentivize a baseline of spending. And we believe that because you have companies like Dow in the state who have operated here for, my math is going to be off, 127 years, 128 years. Our floor is already really high, right? This is an incredible tool, we believe, that can incentivize jobs that are already here to stay here. Companies that are here today that are looking to expand to make that choice to do it here, and companies that want to come into Michigan to do it here. We can get 3 wins out of this if we do it correctly. And we understand these bills are a work in progress. We appreciate all of the work that's gone into them, and we can commit to you to be a constructive part of the discussion going forward. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, just hold tight for a little bit. I'm going to have Mike Johnston from the Michigan Manufacturers Association come and testify. And he turned in a card as well. Just, yes, support the bill with amendments.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the R&D tax credit package. I'm Mike Johnston, Executive Vice President of Government Affairs and Workforce Development at the Michigan Manufacturers Association. I'm here on behalf of MMA, but my comments reflect the shared view with other business organizations. I don't normally speak for other business organizations, but with agreement from them, I'm doing so today. The committee has likely received separate letters from each of the organizations to confirm their position. First, let me say we collectively are very interested in establishing an R&D tax credit here in Michigan. We are one of just 14 states without an R&D tax credit built into our tax code. We are very much appreciate you and the sponsors bringing forth bills that clearly communicate the state recognizes and appreciates the value of innovation as a driver for future economic growth. Whether companies are creating the next life-saving drug, the next battery technology, or the next telescope to explore the universe, innovation is the key to future economic growth. However, I'm here to say, we and collectively prefer taking a different approach that better integrates the R&D tax credit into the Michigan business climate. We prefer a more broad-based approach implemented by Treasury, making the credit automatic and available to all companies currently in Michigan and those newly considering Michigan as a location for investment, particularly R&D investment. R&D investment can go anywhere. When companies are making decisions about locations, they are long-term investments. They need predictability and certainty that tax credits supporting the effort will remain in place. Wondering whether or not a credit will be granted in the future creates greater uncertainty, especially compared to other states that have credits built into their tax code. Building an R&D tax credit in the tax code brings several advantages from a business perspective. First, it's predictability and reliability. Second, it's administratively simple and efficient in that it is automatically implemented through the annual tax filings with Treasury, especially if the definitions reflect federal definitions. Thirdly, the credit is available to all businesses, large and small, regardless of the field of their endeavor. And lastly, the broad-based approach helps define the Michigan business climate in Michigan as encouraging innovation. Let me address an obvious question. We understand through conversation with administration and legislative leaders that at this point the budget for R&D tax credit is in the neighborhood of $100 million. We recognize and agree that in the context of a large industrial economy, $100 million doesn't go very far, especially in terms of individual value for an individual company. However, there is a broad agreement among the members of the business community that integrating the tax credit into the tax code is the best approach for Michigan's business climate. In closing, Mr. Chair, we truly appreciate you bringing forth the R&D tax credit along with the sponsors to improve Michigan's economy, and we simply prefer a more automatic, broad-based approach. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we're going to start with some questions. It's going to start with the bill sponsors. If you have questions for the bill sponsors, we can pose them to them, or if you have questions for either Mr. Johnston or Mr. Stoutenberg, you can address them to them or any of the potential other people who also testified. So with that, we will start with Representative Van Workum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to colleagues for being here and testifying. Obviously, many of us agree that in the concept of an R&D tax credit, but there's some concerns. Even the guests that you guys brought up had some concerns about these bills. I share a lot of those concerns. I think the approach put forward is very convoluted. Refundable, not refundable, size of the company, 7 years, 5 years, whether you use a research university or not, and the list goes on. The purpose, and some have testified about this, of an R&D tax credit is the recognition by the government that it's okay to fail. A lot of these things are going to fail, then far more are going to be successful, and that's why we put this in the tax code. And right now, from the testimony, this seems to be far more about attraction rather than retention. And I will tell you, the next great company is already here in the state of Michigan. And this should be focused more on the retention of those jobs. What this seems to be doing is using MSF as a tool. The word tool has been used a lot. It seems like MEDC is going to now be this tool for attraction rather than the R&D tax credit, which I think should be on the front of this. So my first question is, when this cap is reached, how will it be determined which company receives a tax credit and how much? Because as it was testified, business needs certainty. If they are going to come here, they need to have that certainty. And if this is front-loaded towards attraction by giving it to MSF, then how are they going to have that certainty? Because it sounds like they're going to be hiring more accountants, more lawyers, and probably lobbyists to make sure that their project moves forward. And then the second question is, what is the reason why this is going through MSF rather than Treasury? This is a form that your federal IRS R&D tax credit, page and a half. Accountants are already filling that out. Why can't we just put Michigan right on there and then let the Treasury fill that out? So I agree with the guy with the difficult name, and if this committee is in charge of the R&D tax credit, I'd ask for a hearing on House Bill 4367 and 4368, which is exactly what they have testified and are seeking. Thank you.
All right.
I can start. I can lead off. Thank you for the questions. I would say that actually this is why I think we need multiple bills, because I call it a one. Otherwise, I would call it a one-size-fits-none approach. So my bill again is specific to small businesses. I think it's very difficult. I actually looked into this over my first term and into my second term, and I could not figure out a way to address both the needs of small and large businesses in one bill. So my bill specifically would have a 7-year, it's a little bit longer for small businesses. It also is a 15% refundable credit. So I think some of the nuances of the differences of the bills address part of your question about small versus large. I'll let my colleagues kind of speak to the other piece.
I can handle the question too, if you want to.
Well, I'll jump in. I think there is a significant discussion around the debate around the Michigan Strategic Fund versus a Treasury-based investment, and I'd like to address that and then pass it over to Rep. Martis. Our approach is, as we all know, is constrained first and foremost by the amount of dollars that we have available to invest, which, as you know, several people had noted, isn't really comparable to A, where we want to be, or B, other significant states that are building R&D programs. I think there are opportunities as we refine these bills to find compromise in that space, but initially I would argue with just $100 million that the oversight of the Michigan Strategic Fund is very important to make sure that these investments are not watered down, have a strategic impact, that they do both attract and retain Michigan's existing growing business innovators. I think there is a moment in the future where we may have more revenue to invest in the transition to a treasury-based system. It would be appropriate in the context of, say, 250 or 300 million in a fund or more. I hope that we can find a pathway forward where we can all get on board and do the heavy lifting to make sure that that becomes a reality rapidly. But we do know that we are looking at constricting budgets in future years. And we won't have the same kind of flow of federal revenue moving through the budget that we've had this past year. So we need to approach this conservatively, strategically, make sure that we get the most bang out of our buck for each dollar that we invest on behalf of the people of Michigan. And the best way to do that is with significant a significant role for the Michigan Strategic Fund initially, and then flexibility for future environments when we have more revenue.
Yeah, I won't R&D explain. I think Rep. Hood did a good job explaining where we're at. But I think whether you agree or disagree with Treasury versus Strategic Fund, from my conversations with MEDC, the approach they were taking with the Strategic Fund made sense, and based on what they were operating under, which was if we only have this amount of money, then this would be the most effective way to do it. But the reason why we're doing testimony today, and the reason why we've been working very hard on this, is I think there are a lot of areas for compromise on this. I think it's a rare moment where the best policy and the best politics are actually going together on this. I think from my conversations with folks on both sides of the aisle, they're bringing some legitimate concerns. I hope as a Democrat Democrat. That doesn't make you guys less popular in your caucuses or anything like that, but it's true that a number of you guys have brought some really valid concerns. I think that there's areas to compromise when it comes to Treasury versus strategic fund, when it comes to expanding the definition of when we say research universities, who does that qualify, when we're discussing refundability and carry forward. I think every conversation that I've had, and this has really dominated the my fall agenda so far, everyone's been operating in really good faith and bringing unique perspectives. So I would just say that this is a starting point here. And just to reiterate, I think Treasury versus strategic fund, expanding the universities, refundability, carry forward, and those provisions, those are things that I do believe that we can work out.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Representative Tisdale. All right, thank you, because I'm running out of time. Representative Farhat.
Thank you to the sponsors of the legislation for coming today. And I do want to echo a sentiment that was brought up about, we have some world-class facilities here in Michigan that are doing some great work, and we heard today that we want to make sure that they continue to be competitive and are able to stay in Michigan and grow in Michigan, hopefully. Have we benchmarked this proposal compared to the other 30 states that have some type of R&D credit, and how do we fall in line with them? Are we better? Is this more competitive? How does this compare to the other 30 states that have a similar tax credit?
I mean, I will speak briefly and say I'll echo what I said earlier about I have looked at quite a few other states' programs, and I think we're right in the middle. I think there's some that are a little bit more robust, especially on the funding piece of it. But anywhere from 5 to 15% is pretty common. And again, I think the thing that's unique about our package of bills is it gives a little bit more flexibility to have that range of a little bit more of a boost for small businesses under 250 employees, and then still helping large companies, but with only 100 million roughly. That's not an endless pot of money.
No, and I think that ensuring that there's a competitive pot for the smaller firms to be able to go after is important, especially as we're looking to retain talent and retaining. We have world-class universities. We have really great graduates coming out. We want to make sure that they can launch their R&D business or grow their business in Michigan with our Michigan-based talent. So I think that's really noble and really gets to the point of the legislation. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have Representative Martin and Representative St. Germain. You'll be the last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up to what Rep. Van Werken was asking about, if MSF is given the ability, I think it's specifically to 5099, to establish the credit program, it just says that they have carte blanche, basically, to do this. Is there going to be criteria spelled out of, other than just the size of the company, but so that we can equitably distribute and compete for grants or the tax credit?
Yes, it's my understanding that there will be clear guidelines established by the strategic fund.
Okay. Representative St. Germain.
I just have a quick question. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding eligibility. Oh, I can't say that word this morning. I'm having one of those mornings. Would, say, a company, an overseas company, be eligible for this tax credit?
No, this tax credit really focuses on Michigan businesses.
I think if we're getting to a point, and this a little bit answers what Rep. Martin was pointing to as well, if we can get this as close as possible to mirroring the federal credit, there wouldn't be any worries for something like that.
All right, thank you all. And I think something that's been made very clear is that this is certainly still a work in progress. I know I've been taking notes on many of the things that have been brought up in testimony. I imagine the bill sponsors have as well. And so we will probably be revisiting this next week as well. I'm going to quickly read in some cards. All of these are not wishing to speak in support of the bill. Amy Malmer from the Metropolitan Affairs Coalition. Karen Johnson from Toyota, support of the bill. Mike Spence Southeast Michigan Council of Governments in support of the bill. Lily Malander from, I'm assuming this is MishBio, in support of the bills. Leah Robinson from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce opposing the bills. Marcus Keach from the Grand Rapids Chamber opposing the bills. Alex Moores from the Michigan Bakers supporting the bills. Megan Kite from representing Steel Case supporting the bills. Bree Anderson from MEDC supporting the bills, and Brian Schoaf from the Detroit Regional Chamber neutral on the bills. With that, Representative Miller moves to approve the minutes from the October meeting. Without objection, so ordered. Representative Grant moves to excuse absent members. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.